were issued, what the problems we were dealing with, what applications were hit, things like that. But proactive, analyzing all this data. So like we are using different tools, including like all the modern ones like AI tools, in order to proactively predict what the landscape will look in the near future and how to address it.
And then you're moving your resources accordingly.
Absolutely, and the resources are basically assigned accordingly. So we either like expanding certain teams or reallocating resources to different teams like that based on that.
You know what's interesting, Andre? As I'm hearing you speak, I'm thinking to myself how important cross-training is, right? Whether it's, you
can't even imagine. In the beginning of the fiscal year, when we had our annual town hall, our global CISO, like he pointed exactly to that. So like how important cross-training is right now, because like so many things are happening and the team needs to be very like maneuverable. Yeah. That reminds me of a story like of Ford, like, so like when he first established his factories. So like what he was doing, he was looking at the workers, and whoever was performing very well at his task, he was moving to another one.
Yep.
And moving them around until they were like doing like all the tasks very good. And then those people who could have do this, they were sitting idle, but they were able to jump into any part of the process.
Yeah, based upon risk, we don't want to have to hire new resources. We just want to be able to move them over. Mark,
absolutely, cross-training.
You get your hand up, Mark.
Yeah, you want to be as proactive as you can. Obviously, there are times where reactive kicks in, but our CISO has been driving the hiring and including the people who have multiple experiences so they can switch seats at a moment's notice, and cross-training as well. Cross-training is great, but if you have people that already have both or multiple skill sets, it makes them a lot more flexible to help out at a moment's notice until everybody gets trained up. But going forward, it's going to be just tougher and tougher to stay ahead of the game. So people can't just pigeonhole themselves into one silo, if you will. They need to cross-train and be ready for everything and every opportunity to help alleviate problems.
And let me ask you, Mark, as important as that is to have a flexible team, how do you determine where to put those resources? What thermometer, what measurement are you using to say, hey, we need more resources over here on the vulnerability scanning side. We need more resources over here on compliance or privacy.
Yeah, you get the right platform in that starts to show, that captures and tells you what actions to take, and that way you can try to cut a lot of those vulnerabilities down. But then that shows your executive leadership that you need more headcount to stay ahead of this need. And so that's when you start to allocate. But until those resources fill in, you borrow from Peter to give to Paul, right?
If it's good enough to
so that's just a short-term fix until you get the right people in that's identified.
Well, all right, thanks, Mark. Andre, he's got his hand up.
No one who's up to that is listening to this right now, because we just gave
Andre, you're on mute.
Okay, I'm back.
Already.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Yeah, since my focus has been on risk management, I have been actually looking for tools that can help quantify the risk, and that's going to help me and help my
we've already come
prospects and
across
clients. I'm trying to get them
AI
to focus more of their resources on proactive tools and measures, and also the most important thing I think is the risk management part of it. But you have to be able to
there's one we covered a while ago called Chaos GPT,
when you're talking to C-level, you got to quantify it. You can't
so
just show.
It makes sense
your score
that
is
would be the case.
15 out of 100.
I would say on the
what
other
does that
side
mean?
is
these
that's what I've been
working
on, and
I'm glad using AI to counter that.
We'll get a chance to
I talked to a developer.
Perfect timing for you to be here, Andre.
And he basically said they use AI to.
Let me take that a bit further here in terms of not only
I can't stay up
being able to measure that risk, but how do you communicate? And I'm opening this up. This is a brand new question here. How do you communicate
That's a good
the
use for this,
effectiveness of
because
your cybersecurity
it
program,
should be the
your
backbone
security
of your
posture. How do you
security,
communicate
not
that to the
just
board
your security.
or to your boss and your peers within the organization? How are you doing that today? I'm looking to hear from some of you CISOs out there that have to speak to the board on a quarterly or yearly basis, or as I mentioned, maybe you're just having to report to your leadership. James Placer has his hand up. James.
So one of the key things for us is our external presence to our customers. I mean, that really drives how our company is viewed. So there's an internal aspect, how we view internally, and how we look at our customers. A key one for us is our external BitSite rating. A lot of our
BitSite.
customers
Okay, yeah, I'm familiar with it.
very tied into our BitSite score. So when we are looking to where put our organizations and how to present to the board, they're looking at what's our BitSite score. We went from 740 to 780 last year. That's a hard metric. I can say that. And that's actually, we went from 740 to 780 last year. So we can actually say we are now in the top 5% of our industry. That's a hard metric. That's a metric the board likes. A lot of companies, a lot of boards are looking for an external metric.
They are looking for something external. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And I don't think a lot of companies do enough of that.
Yeah.
That provides a standardized metric to everyone. Does it indicate that we are secure? Absolutely does not.
No,
Does it provide an internal message? Absolutely does not. But it provides a standardized external measure that a lot of enterprise companies out there are familiar with.
Yeah, I appreciate that, James. Patrick, you got your hand up.
Yeah, so we're heavily leveraged in automation tools to supplement most of our physical staffing. So when it comes to reporting the effectiveness of the program, there's a lot of different, obviously, key metrics and KPIs that must be met. But at the same time, we do align ourselves to things like the Secure Score and the NIST framework, obviously. So there are some things that are easier to quantify where you are in your security journey, and the rest is really just trying to have give folks that aren't typically security minded the ability to understand in their own way how safe the organization is. So in putting it in words that they understand and that they're able to authorize, or spending and kind of, this is where we could be, with this amount of funding, this is where this would get us. But there's also things like they just want to understand what we could be doing as an organization to better empower our users to take the security into their own hands and things like that. So we are heavily leveraged in automation tools. So reporting on the metrics that are generated from those is obviously one way. Yep.
So I'm hearing, external scoring card type stuff, other automated tools that Pat mentioned. Nick's got his hand up.
Yeah. So we're probably a little different than most folks. We're in the healthcare industry.
Well, you know what, Nick, it'd be good to hear it from a healthcare perspective. So
we're actually mandated by the state of New York to actually maintain a high trust certification. So every year we have to certify with high trust, recertify, and we present those measures to our board. And we also do quarterly meetings with our board. We present our risks, our risk scores, improvements, our threats in those areas. Not so much with what most folks are doing, but we hold millions upon millions of records of protected health information. And so it's really critical for us to ensure that we're constantly maintaining our certification. We're constantly, like everybody else, we have DLP tools in place. What are our DLP tools? How many people are trying to, use a brute force attack on us? We record all those types of measures and understand our threat landscape. And I think it was Andre was speaking earlier about how you reallocate resources. And one of the things we do is we try and assess, nobody can be perfect, right? But we have a 3-year rolling security plan. So where's the threat landscape going? How do we need to adjust to that threat landscape? How much of it is practical? And what are we really seeing as opposed to what the threat landscape is predicted to be. So we leverage a lot of that and keep our board totally informed of everything we do. Our risk register is presented to them at every board meeting monthly, so they understand where we're at. Because if they're not informed, they don't know that what we need, right? They need to know what the problem is in order to fund us correctly.
Yeah, and I've got to tell you, Nick, you should look at those high trust and other regulatory requirements.
1 second, you are hearing any background? I'm in the other meeting. 1 second.
As your best friend, because I know years ago, back when Sarbanes-Oxley was the talk of the town, it was because of those regulatory requirements that I was able to get an increased budget. So, those requirements can be your best friend as a CISO. Robert Pace, you had your hand up. What's your thought on this one, Robert?
Ed, thanks a lot, Maurice. Good seeing you again. I think that all of my colleagues said the key points, having those metrics and is really key, and having that presence. I would submit that what I found effective is when other major projects are inclusive of having security in their discussion, their readouts. That allows your voice to resonate not only with you presenting to the board, when there's another EVP or SVP presenting, they're secure. They hear it all the time. So that by the time you get there, you just nail it. But using other leaders to talk about and make sure that security is infused in their major initiatives, their major projects, that complements all of those other good works by having a security scorecard or bit side, whatever the case. You got to balance that out. So I would just submit that, and that'll round you out.
Robert, I like that idea of having the other business unit leaders, right? The VPs, the president of that business unit, because most companies have a few. They also have to report to the board. Having them, discuss what their security posture is, above and beyond, let's say, the CISO kind of wrapping up, the entire score and posture for the company, but bringing it down to the business units. Absolutely. Great comment.
It just helps because they will speak that they will work with the CISO and his team, and this was able to get this on time, on plan, on target, under budget, whatever the case, but it's a good building factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's change this up a little bit. Speaking about regulatory requirements, the Security Exchange Commission, again, we kind of talked about an article earlier in today's presentation where I think it was Prudential Insurance. They had a breach. They had 4 days to report that breach to the SEC. I'm wondering, how are some of you looking to prepare for and to handle these new SEC material requirements? What are you doing? And this might be something that doesn't apply to everybody because not everyone's on the NASDAQ, not everyone's on the exchange, but I would be curious, what are you doing to prepare to meet the SEC requirements?
Incident response plan, testing it.
Lou, incident response plan?
Correct, yeah. We we drill our incident response plan, have our crisis management team drill meetings and walk through various scenarios of oh shit moments.
Yep, doing those tabletop exercises. Others.
One of the things that we have that are clients that are subject to the SEC, they're looking hard at how they would define their materiality requirements and what their criteria is going to be up front, because you have a very short time window from the time that something happens to decide, first of all, does it meet materiality?
Play again.
Yeah. Keep going, Ann.
So one of the things they're doing right now is taking that criteria into account, and that's going to be built into both their incident response and all of their interactions with their service providers as well, because a lot of the things they have with either outsourced third parties doing some of their incident response and MSP type of support, they've got to make sure everything's coordinated across those lines. So it's the incident response, the breach reporting, and that materiality quantification.
No, thanks for sharing that. Andre, you had a thought on this as well?
Yeah, Maurice, I'm going back to the proactive part of it. We're actually trying to get advise our clients and some of our prospects that are in the public, public companies in regards to the SEC mandate. We're trying to get them to utilize some tools that could help automate the response and try to actually mitigate before we or stop the attack. So we're doing a little bit different. Incident response, yes, after the fact, but we're actually trying to be more proactive so that they won't be hit in the first place or have an incident. And I know that everybody thinks that's probably a losing game, but I think we should focus more on that to help.
And Andre's got an interesting overview, sort of like an umbrella, because he's working as a consultant. He's working with so many different clients, but in the risk quantification field. So he understands how important it is to have a tool, the right tool, some way to automate this process. So Andre, thanks for sharing that. Real quick, we've got a few more minutes before the bottom of the hour here. So this is sort of a quiz. We'll see if anyone answers this correctly, but what is the relationship between cyber risk and your cybersecurity posture? And why is it so important? Anyone, what's the relationship between cyber risk? Someone who hasn't even spoken yet. Let me see if
what about the cyber budget?
The cyber budget? What's that?
Exactly. What's that?
The relationship between the two is the cyber budget.
Yeah, Thomas, want to speak up on that a little bit. What's your thought on that?
Well, I think understanding the cyber risk gives you more budget in order to increase your posture. So the relationship between the two is the size of your budget.
Okay. Andre, Andrew Werner.
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially an intersection point, right?
Well,
how much risk are you going to take on? Yeah. And, how does that relate to your posture? You spend $1 million to protect, $1, right?
Correct. There you go.
Make sense. So,
yeah,
all right,
and typically, as your cyber risk is going down, your cybersecurity posture is going what? Typically
up.
Is going up. Absolutely. Yeah, so
it's a
with
CISO.
that, I'm going to transition here. Let me make sure that our technology provider, Jerry, there can share his screen. So first of all, great conversation. We've got a good group. We've had between 71 and 75 folks on today's call. So great interest here today. I'd like to introduce Jerry. Jerry, I want to make sure I pronounce this correctly. Is it Caponera?
Yeah, that's really good, Maurice. That's I get butchered all the time. That's really good. Your name pronouncing risk is low.
We will go with that there because I typically am not very good with that. And Jerry is the VP of Cyber Risk Strategy at Threat Connect. And glad to have you here, Jerry. And I think we're all just, sort of biting at the bit to hear what are those tools? How can we automate this? How can we go to the board, go to our leader, and be able to really quantify the risk across the organization?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Maurice. Thank you. It's been fun listening to the conversation, I will say. Everything from how do you guys handle budgets to how do you handle materiality to how do you communicate. It's a challenging topic. I actually did a webinar yesterday with one of our board advisors, Myrna Soto, and we spent most of the time answering questions from people because there's so many questions on this. It's really I think it's a timely topic. So what I was going to do is just share a couple of slides and just walk you through how we solve the problem.
And Jerry, by the way, we can hear you, but if you're able to increase the volume a little bit on your side, no one is going to complain.
It's the first time, Maurice. My wife's always telling me to be quieter, so I'm used to being told to shush. But I'm
That's why we didn't invite her to the meeting today. So you can talk as loud as you want, Jerry.
Nice. No, thank you. So just as a quick bit of background, so within Threat Connect, we actually have two lines of business, two products. One is a tip product, Threat Intel, and one is Risk Quantifier. So I joined Threat Connect a little over 3 years ago. They bought the company. We were building the RQ product. And so I've been building risk quantification products for a lot of years now. Half the gray hairs I have are from work, half are from my children. I have 4 sons, so I qualify that. But the bottom line is I love this because it's really the confluence, it's really the intersection of technical and business, right? And it's just fun to be able to kind of have those conversations and watch CISOs change and evolve from the technical realm to the business realm. Anyway, it's a passion area of mine if you haven't figured that out. Listening to this, I think Maurice, your questions were really interesting and kind of spot on. And it's, if you think about it, the challenge, I'd argue one of the core challenges in security, if not the core challenge, is the disconnect that exists between what the business does and how cyber is managed and communicated. Because the reality is businesses think in terms of revenue, profit, loss, legal cost, enterprise valuation. In fact, I don't know if you saw, but Palo Alto just announced some poor results yesterday and their stock price is down 25%. You know what they're talking about today? Not the cool products they have, but the enterprise value being lowered. And that's not from a cyber attack. It's a business impact. So, but the reality is, why does that matter? Is because the cyber attacks we deal with, whether you're disrupting operations, impacting availability, stealing data, or damaging reputation, they cause business impact. And the problem is our reporting isn't done for the most part from a cyber perspective in terms that the business can consume. Technical scores are okay. Certain KRIs and KPIs are okay. But really what the business needs is it needs to put financial values to what a cyber attack actually does. And so what we built with RQ is a product that actually not only communicates and builds that risk quantification in financial terms, but we link it from the boardroom down to the MITRE ATT&CK log. And why does that matter? Well, it matters because you can do a lot of cool things when you do it, right? You can do a lot of cool things. If you've got we built a platform that's really focused on, it's focused on output. It's focused on users first. It's focused on telling a story. It's interesting. Most of my conversations, whether I'm working with organizations to help them drive things forward, I'm working with my own team. It's how do you tell the story of what's going on from an output perspective, from a risk perspective. We built RQ really to do 2 things. One is to show what your financial risk is, but then I'd argue more importantly, it's to show what to do next, right? We want to complete the picture of risk and show, here's my financial exposure, and here's the controls or the areas that I'm deficient that if I fixed, I would actually increase my posture. And I love that risk versus posture conversation because that is it, right? The better your posture is, the lower your risk is. There's an inverse relationship, and it's the right kind of inverse relationship.
Hey, Jerry, just out of curiosity, is there a specific model that you're following? Someone in the chat mentioned something called the FAIR Institute model, which I'm actually not familiar with. So I didn't know if that fits in here at all, or if there's a different model that you're using, if it's completely proprietary, or does it map back to some of these other models?
No, it's a great question. So FAIR has been around for a long time, factor analysis, information risk. And so we actually have 3 models within RQ to do computations. One is pure FAIR. And we have pure FAIR, then we have loss and attack models that are powered by AI and ML, to be completely candid. I'm not in marketing, so I can say that legitimately as the guy who looked to build the product. They're legit AI and ML. And then we kind of merged the 2 together. We married FAIR with the AI and ML. And the reason we did that is because FAIR is great, but it's really hard to do. It's a very time-consuming, services-heavy thing to do. And my customers asked me to automate it. They said, can you help us automate it? So we automate a lot of the data that goes into FAIR for that kind of semi-automated FAIR scenario. And that's what our customers are using to do things like third-party analysis and taking the security scorecard or bit side scans and putting dollars to them. But the AI and ML stuff is what we use for our customers who do this at speed and at scale. So it's 3 really. It's FAIR, it's the AI and ML, and it's kind of the marrying or the merging of the 2.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yep, it's a great question, by the way. And in fact, this kind of slides into the next slide here. What I see companies doing, like, it's interesting, right? And I like the team that put the slide together for us, because we have people like just listening to the conversation today. There's a lot of things you can be doing in a very, very simple way to get started. And it's things like the SEC materiality. What's my exposure? Do I have enough insurance? And we have, within RQ, we provide all the data you need. It's very, very simple to get the outputs. Then you get into, well, what should I be prioritizing for my risks? And what controls should I be looking at? And again, we've got a lot of data there. these are kind of the use cases we see organizations starting to leverage risk quantification for, because risk quantification is a tool that helps you do these things. And these things are what you end up reporting on. Because at the end of the day, just the reason I jumped on a minute late is because one of my customers was like, we want to be able to present the control gaps to the organization. We want to know that if we're at level, if we're at this maturity, we need to get to this maturity, what is the financial benefit for going from maturity level A to maturity level B? Because the business doesn't really care if you're a B and you need to go to an A minus. What they care about is how much risk is reduced and how much is that going to cost me? And that's the why you do the risk quantification. And I'm just going quick through slides here just to give an overview.
And by the way, if anyone has a question as Jerry's presenting, if you see something that's resonating or standing out or need some clarification, feel free to jump in. This is absolutely an open forum.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Jerry.
And if for some reason I make a total mistake, you're allowed to call me out on that as well too. I'm using a new deck on everybody here, so. And then again, I'm not going to talk to you too much about the how, because that's a fun conversation to have, but I really think I want to talk about the what and the why. So one of the things that our customers are doing is risk assessing for the enterprise, if you will, kind of across the entire organization, whether it's one part of the business in terms of a legal entity or across the organization if you're doing kind of a multi-conglomerate organization. You're getting those risks kind of, not only you can see in the bottom here, you're getting it presented in terms of financial loss, but how likely are things to happen as well too. And you're doing this very, very quickly or in a little bit more detail. When it comes to SEC materiality, we see a lot of this, where you see wanting to report on what my potential materiality is. And we not only show this view, we actually have a peer analytics view behind this as well too. And again, it's really about the story you want to tell, like the conversation of what do you want to present to your management and why? What is the outcome you're trying to drive? And so from an SEC materiality perspective, it's really around, are we covered in the right way? Do we have the right kind of information to potentially go into our 10Ks? I will tell you the SEC thing is just as a 1 minute aside, it's not only about the dollar impact, it's about the program you have in place as well too. And if you really want some fun light reading, go to the Edgar Online, start reading some of the 10Ks that are being put out, because the other part of this is about the risk management program that you have in place. And that's getting some real interest about what kind of information do you need to have as a public company, but also then kind of how much should you put in there. And for those of you who are in private companies, remember there's a lot of private companies that are invested in by public companies, and you'll be asked for this as well too. So it's not just purely from a public company perspective.
And Jerry, could you do a double click on the whole estimated loss and most frequent?
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump in and show you that in product actually, because I think it's faster to do this, Maurice. So I'll actually show you that in product. I'd rather show you.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I just want to make sure that.
No, it's a great question, and it's funny because I didn't realize I even had one more slide. I see a lot of different use cases people want to use, and this is one that when I first started doing risk quantification surprised me. People were like, hey, we're a big power company and we have like Windows 95 powering things and we can't get rid of Windows 95. Why? Because people don't understand the risk of keeping these things alive.
Yeah, my mom has been.
Sorry. So
there you go. I got it.
No worries. So that's just another kind of use case. But to answer your question, I'll kind of dive in and show you, just walk you through the product to answer the question. So
this is the actual dashboard of the product itself that we're looking at, correct?
This is live. So if you think about it, one of the interesting things is, if you think, what are we trying to actually show? And this is, I get on a couple of soapboxes. This is one of them. There's a correlation between the kind of loss you face and the defenses you have in place, right? Your controls, your defenses, your vulnerabilities, things like that. There's a correlation, and there's a correlation between the attack and the capabilities and that impact as well too. So what we do within our system, what we do within our queue is we're like, look, we model attacks and we model losses. But then what we do is we actually show you and help you tell the story around, all right, but what is my financial exposure? Just to give a kind of example here. What am I dealing with from an exposure perspective? So you'll see things like an attack or an impact number of $540 million. Now I modeled a very big company here. I modeled a multi-billion-dollar organization. And you can see a couple of big numbers, right? One is that $540 million ransomware attack. What's the loss? how many records are at risk as well too. But more importantly, I argue, are what does the loss look like from a breakdown perspective? And why does this matter? Because at the end of the day, your business is in business to do something, to make money, to process information. If you're in the government space, it's in there to protect the mission and drive the mission. But it's really, you have to deal with the impacts that come from those different kinds of attacks. And you can see the loss types here. So as you're presenting information to your board, I always recommend, no matter what you're doing or what model you choose or what tool you choose, to show, here's my magnitude of loss, here's how often one of these happens, and then most importantly, here's what my defenses can do for me.
And then on top of all of this, Jerry, there's also the reputational loss that, on top of this, right? I mean, it's just icing on the cake, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is icing on the cake. And then being able to not only quantify that, but also communicate that. Go ahead. I see a hand up, so I don't want to miss it.
Andre's got a quick question, I think. Andre? Oh, you're on mute, Andre.
Yeah, I think you almost touched on it. I put it in the chat because I was concerned about other than cyber risk, we're talking there. Business risk is the overarching, but we have cyber risk, we've got reputational risk, we have geopolitical risk, we have regulatory compliance. So we have more than cyber risk. So I'm just trying to get an idea of how can we quantify those other risks, which I'm not sure if there's a tool. I have two separate tools, but I'm not sure if it's something that could pull that all together.
Yeah, no, good question, Andre. Thanks.
Yeah, it is a good question. And Andre, so what we're seeing is on RQ, our goal was to put a dollar value on cyber risk, right? That was really our goal. When we looked at the market, we said, there are tools like we're partnering with ServiceNow, for example. ServiceNow is going to be, we're deploying a version of RQ that's going to be available in the ServiceNow App Store because they handle the rest of the kind of risk world. And we handle the risk quantification piece really well for cybersecurity. So we're starting to see partnerships with GRCs complete that solution. That might be like if you're looking for the overarching enterprise risk management kind of world, I would suggest one of those guys. And then we're starting to plug into a bunch of those as well too, to power their cyber piece, because most GRCs lack a cyber risk quantification solution. They handle the other risks well, not cyber, actually.
Yeah.
So, we're not going to bore you with inputs. I think this is where the conversation we tend to see go more often is around what do I do about it, right? So if you think about it, the biggest question I've seen asked for years is, how do we prioritize the resources we have in a way that makes the most financial sense to the organization, right? Full stop. And so what we've done with RQ is we said, look, we're going to take the controls that exist inside the environment using a NIST, using an ISO 27001 or a CIS, and prioritize based on the attacks that we're seeing, based on running MITRE attacks beneath the surface against a number of different attack patterns. We're going to actually then compute what is the control that is the best one to buy down risk by. And why does that matter? It's because if you're going to do something within the organization, you should be looking at what is the financial value to the organization. And so you can see here's a prioritized set of controls, not based on what I think I should do, but based on how much financial risk is reduced to the organization. And I keep coming back to that because what we end up having our customers do is they end up going, look, I either want to show that $2.5 million, or I want to show that that's my top risk that's the top thing I should do for the organization. And being able to communicate that then changes the conversation for security from, hey, can I have more money because I want to upgrade X to, you know what I need to do? I need to spend, I need to spend $300,000 to buy down risk by $2.5 million. Do you object? And if you object, who's going to accept that $2.5 million risk?
Yeah, I tell you what, when you put that risk and you put a name under it, all of a sudden the budget seems to increase just a little bit more. There's a quick question from Andrew Werner.
Yeah, how granular do you get with the industry comparison? For example, I'm in advertising, and when I, go to fill out, even sign up for different tech talks like this, often like advertising is not listed as an industry option. I have to just go with media or professional services or something like that, right? How far do you guys go?
Andrew, I'm going to put myself on the spot here and say I don't know the answer to your question. So what we do is it's our data and our losses and our attack information is based on a 2-digit NAICS code. So you would probably fall under one of the 2-digit NAICS codes around.
We're looking for advertisement here, Jerry. He's going to add it in there tomorrow, Andre.
You might see it. Yeah, you're not going to see. You're going to see it under one of the
Yeah,
other ones.
I think we get looped in with arts, entertainment, and recreation.
Okay.
Right.
Great
Which
question.
is that necessarily a great, industry to compare us against?
Well, let me cheat and show you something else then. So one of the things that we've done, and we're recently launching a version of this that actually will do the same thing. I'll be candid, uses the same kind of 2-digit level NAICS code. But what it actually does, it actually starts to show peer analytics as well too. So the question I would answer, the way I would answer your question, Andrew, is yes, it works if you've got a good number of peers in there, but if it doesn't work, then it is probably best to show it in a different industry. Because at the end of the day, what's going to resonate mostly is not, hey, I've got a $20 million loss, but it's I've got a $20 million loss. Other companies like me have lost X dollars as well too, right? I think that's the, I don't know, that's a better way to correlate and kind of contextualize that loss from what I've seen.
Okay, great, thanks.
And if you're into the insurance thing as well too, like a lot of our customers are starting to move into insurance. They want to see, people always ask us if you know the space, they're like, why don't you show loss exceedance curves and loss distribution curves? And I'm like, I kind of want to make somebody take a test to explain one to me, because most people I talk to don't know how to consume them. I'll be honest. I get confused sometimes because you can make them hard. And so we said, look, for those of you in the insurance world, just how about if we just gave you like different values here? Median, 80, 90, 90%.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Andre's got a quick question. Andre.
Yes, Andre, quick question. So like we were talking about SEC here and basically US regulations, but I noticed like when you were trying to select industries, there were different currencies like like GBP and Australian dollars and stuff like that. How you deal with regulations like a global one for the global organizations? For example, we're present like in like all over the world, and there are different regulations, different way to quantify it.
Yeah, there's two things. I'll answer that question. So one of the within the product, when you actually go in and you start to configure both kind of what's at risk for the organization. So Andre, I'm trying to give you the 1 minute answer. We have a version of our queue that kind of looks at the enterprise. It's a portfolio view, right? So we have the portfolio view, which would look at all the different companies across the globe, as an example. And then within each one of those, you can go in and configure, like your manufacturing system in one. What you would want to do first is you want to identify kind of what the business assets at risk are. You'd want to identify the attack surface, both in terms of controls, in terms of endpoints, vulnerability scans, software library analysis, detailed stuff, talk about threats. I'm going really fast. And then if you had custom losses you needed to add, you can actually add a custom loss model in here. For example, we cover GDPR well. We have a very good loss model for GDPR. You don't have to worry about it.
Okay.
I showed you my output for
Thank
GDPR.
you. Yeah, like let's discuss it like outside of that. Like I don't want to waste too much time for everybody else.
It's a great question. So we anything that we can find data for, we model. But when we can't find data, we actually have the ability for you to build your own loss models as well too, to kind of add that flexibility.
Okay,
good.
Thank you.
Andrew.
So anyway, so we were talking about recommendations. Again, there's a couple. I'm trying to keep an eye on the chat as well too.
I've got it.
You got it? Okay, cool. So I will tell you that when we built our queue, I remember sitting in the office 6 years ago, we built it to solve this problem of where should an organization invest next to best buy down their financial risk. That's it, right? Security competes with the rest of the business. I guarantee you, every CEO you have does not want to spend money on security. They want to spend money on marketing and sales and product to make more revenue. So we as security have to go, what is the value we bring to the business? And the value we bring to the business is if you spend X dollars, you reduce that much risk. And I would love, my dream is for security to always go, you can do anything you want in business if you accept this level of risk, full stop. We should never say no again. We should always be saying yes with an if, and the if being that dollar risk. Anyway, that's one of my short passion areas. Short-term recommendations. This is
Can I ask a question?
Please.
Sorry, I can't raise my hand, but I found it very interesting. It's sustainability is a very big topic, at least for us in Europe. And what's done is that, okay, you calculate your pollution rate or your contribution in CO2, and then you buy sort of offsets, right? And if you buy offsets, it becomes an actual cost on your balance sheet, which is very, very interesting because then there's an incentive to make investments. So my question is, do you see a similar metric with regards to actually taking the risk that you accept as a cost in your books, so that there's an actual incentive to reduce that cost?
Well, Thomas, I would love to see that.
I know. What a great question. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be honest. I'll let the rest of the guys answer. I see the opposite more than I see what you're describing. I see a lot of organizations shy away from talking about risk publicly, even though they're public and even though they're mandated to do this because they're worried about liability. Maybe it's a U.S. thing versus a Europe thing. I'm not sure.
But that makes some sense. And maybe the first things that came to my mind would have been insurance cost, right? But I think cyber insurance is really on the downfall, really, because it's becoming too expensive. Is that what you see as well?
It is, and in fact, I see a lot of people pushing back on the brokers and the underwriters for A, do I really need this amount of insurance? And B, why am I paying so much? So here's the area I will see changing, Tom. I don't think the U.S. companies will put the risks on their books today. I think the liability will be too high. I don't think we'll see like that kind of offset you're describing. What I do see potentially changing is the trend of companies opening up and showing more or talking more about their defensive posture and how risky they are to their brokers so that they can get a better rate, so that they can both within the board have the conversation, but also within their brokers and underwriters get a better rate. Because if you're really, really good on defense, you should pay less. And the example I'll give you is Geico, right? When Geico did a device years ago to track your driving, the better you drove, the more you didn't speed, the better rate you got. I think that's where I see the change coming in the US.
That's really interesting. And the SEC, are they requiring, I'm not totally read up on that, but are they requiring companies to more open up on how much risk they actually are taking?
So the SEC in December last year did two things. They said, if you have a breach, you have to talk about it. But then I think a very short period of time, number of days, you have to describe how material it could be to you. So that's kind of the general speaking. The other thing the SEC did was said, you actually have to, in your 10Ks, and you have to talk about how you're managing cybersecurity as a program, not as a tool or a KPI. You have to talk about it. That is the beginning, I think, of the SEC and or the US getting behind eventually forcing companies to talk more about security risk. I think it's coming. It's just taking longer than some of us would like.
Yeah. We have about 5 minutes, Jerry. 5 minutes.
Okay. So last things.
Anne's got a quick question. Anne.
One of the things that we run into is we argue a lot about how you quantify how much it would cost you in places. And usually you can get into that by looking at what your business drops would be worth. But then the biggest issue is the probability of occurrence. And I think this is where we as professionals need to argue that the protections we put in place affect the probabilities more.
100%.
And so if you take that approach, when you look at talking with other people that are handling risks of other types in the business, if you can handle that, you're better off.
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. In fact, I'm going to bounce around a little bit. This whole concept we talked about, like when we talk about risk, we talk about it in terms of both the likelihood, in terms of you being breached based on your defenses, and the financial impact. And we do this by looking at, how likely are you to be beaten? How likely are your defenses? It has to come from the inside for you to really know this. Now, I say this being a company that actually partners and does analysis of third-party risk with Security Scorecard, and we're working on some others as well too, to quantify what the risk is to those third parties. But I still think that's great and that's very insightful. I couldn't agree more. You have to look at how well you're defended, how many vulnerabilities you have, what your attack surface looks like in order to have this conversation for real.
Yeah, thank you, Ann, for that.
What else can I show you really quick? I'm trying to go super fast. Oh, and the vulnerability things. This is an area, so I'll tell you, this is an area we're seeing a lot of uptick in, and also something that is, I think we're going to continue to drive down into, is getting very, very tactical. So one of our goals is to drive risk into the SOC, drive cyber risk quantification into the SOC, into the security teams, into a more daily basis. And so you'll see something like this where we're looking at what is my financial risk for vulnerabilities. I'll never forget the first time we did this, like the first time the math came out of the product and we were like, whoa, what do you mean? like the 7s and the 8s are higher financial risks than the 9s and the 10s. It really kind of blew people's minds, but it's true, right? It's not, everybody knows it's not just about the CVSS score. So one of the things you're going to see us continue to do is to take this concept of what is my financial exposure? What are the controls that I should be looking at in terms of financial risk reduction? What are the vulnerabilities that drive that risk? And then we're getting down and driving this even to putting dollars around MITRE tactics and techniques as well too. So being able to control, as I said, being able to close that loop, that loop from my risk at the board is this at the top, right? I got a $500 million risk at the top because I've got a 60% chance of being beaten because my identity and access management control is weak, and because I've got these massive vulnerabilities, and because I've got these actors exploiting these tactics. Like that closes the loop. And then as you fix the things at the granular level, it reduces risk at the top level. And you create that repeating cycle, which treats risk as a cyber risk as a business risk, and really will drive, I think, where the industry needs to go in the future.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are at the bottom of the hour. Fantastic. Really enjoyed today's discussion, and hopefully all of you also who are here enjoyed the presentation as well. If you would like more information, I know Jerry and his team will be more than happy to make sure they send that information out to you, and feel free also to reach back to Threat Connect. I've got a few JBL speakers that I want to give away real quickly here. And as I mentioned at the beginning, those that were really participating, I want to say thank you. And to be honest, I want to say thank you to everyone who's on today's call. We're going to be doing a lot more of these each and every week, as well as I mentioned, we've got a bunch of dinners in the areas where most of you live around major metropolitan cities. Looking forward to seeing you at a dinner or a networking reception. So without further ado, let me call a few people here. We'll go with Andrew Werner. Are you still on, Andrew? Andrew Werner?
I am, yes, thank you.
Andrew, I've got a JBL speaker for you. Thanks for your participation today. If I call your name, do me a favor, send me a private chat with your shipping address, an email and a phone number for tracking, so I can get that JBL speaker to you, Andrew. Again, a private chat. Thomas Bassen. Thomas, are you still on?
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. JBL speaker for you. Again, give me your shipping information in a private chat, email, phone number. Ann Rogers, are you on? Ann Rogers, still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Ann, I've got a JBL speaker or Amazon gift card for you. Either way, Andrew. Ann, thanks, Ann Rogers. I really appreciate your insight. Some great questions, Ann. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lou, are you still on? Lou, I think it was Haruska. Lou going once. Lou going twice. Might have missed Lou. Robert Pace, are you on? Robert Pace. Robert Pace going once. Nick Van Dunn, are you still on, Nick? And I know some folks probably had to jump to another meeting, so
I'm here.
Who is that? Is that Nick? Hey, Nick.
Yep.
Fantastic. I've got a JBL speaker for you, Nick. Do me a favor, send me a private chat with your shipping address, email, phone number for tracking. We'll get that to you, Nick. Thanks again for joining today.
Thank you.
Patrick, are you on? Kobalansky.
Hey, yeah,
Patrick?
Maurice, I'm on.
All right. Hey, Pat. You bet. JBL speaker for you, Pat. Same thing. Send me a private chat with your shipping address. James Placer, are you on, James?
I'm here.
Hey, James. JBL speaker for you.
Sure thing.
Thanks, James, for your participation. Mark Harkin, are you on, Mark?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Mark, you bet. JBL speaker for you as well. Same thing. Send me a private chat with all the info. And last but not least, and if I didn't call your name this time, next time, hopefully I will. Andre Raransky, are you on still? Oh, wait a minute. You know what? I do have one more yet still. Andre Payne, are you on still?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
All right. We've got both Andres here. So both Andres, do me a favor.
Thank you.
You betcha. Send me a private chat with the shipping address for that JBL speaker. You bet, Andre. And an email and a phone number for tracking. I will get that to you. With that, I wanted to say, everyone, thank you very much. I'll let you get over to your next meeting. And because I'm not able to download a private chat, I will just take a quick photo of those shipping addresses here, so I can get that over to you. So Andre, I've got yours. That's Andre Werenskowski. Okay, Patrick, I've got your address. Thank you very much. Scrolling on down, James, I got yours, and I've got yours. All right, thank you. Nick, got yours there as well. All right. Okay, and wants a gift card. We'll do that. Andre Werner, got yours there. Okay. Let's see, who else have I missed? And if I called your name, just send me that private chat with the shipping address. I think I've got everyone. Andre Payne, I've got yours as well. All right. I think that's it. Yes, it is. All right, guys. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Yeah, I just sent mine. Sorry.
All right. Thanks, Mark. No, that's okay.
Thanks, Maurice. Thanks,
I'm going to
guys.
get it right now, Mark.
Take care, everybody.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.